Hello, Tony here from Days Out Travel, and here I am in London, the capital city of England. Very popular destination for a lot of tourists, and rightly so, there's lots to do here. However, it's also got a reputation for being a very expensive city, and it's probably justified, certainly if you live here and aware of the housing and rental costs. But if you're coming as a tourist, it too can be an expensive experience. So, what I'm going to do today is give you some hopefully insider tips on how to save some money on your visit to London. And you should stick around to the end because there's a super one that hardly anyone knows about, and I can guarantee you it will save you a fortune. So let's get started with our money saving tips when visiting London. Okay, so let's start our London money saving odyssey with accommodation. London, as probably people well know, is a place with some fantastic hotels, some glitzy, iconic hotels, which also cost you an arm and a leg. So we're here today to save the cash. So rather than going for those fancy pants hotels, check out a good old fashioned B&B. They are usually family run, usually pretty straightforward. You get a room, usually a double or a twin, get breakfast included, pretty effective. Looking at the prices, I'll just have a check. Yeah, you get maybe about £100 a night or something, but that's pretty reasonable, especially if it's just for one room and there's a couple of you or you're a family. Okay, so we've saved a few quid on a hotel by going for a B&B rather than the penthouse at the Ritz. Now we're going to look at arrival. So when we land, how can we save some cash getting to and from the airport? Now, London's well serviced for airports. There's sort of five of them, international ones, probably a bit more if you want to count Southend, which I don't. But the only one that's centrally located is London City Airport, and that is very close to the city. Probably only, I don't know, 10, 15-minute drive from the city. But we'll discount that because the other four, which is Heathrow, Gatwick, Stansted, and Luton, are a long, long way from central London. So you're going to have to make your way there on public transport, more than likely. Now, the first thing to say is my chair keeps actually falling down, keeps pushing down. So sorry if I keep going up and down, but I need to get a new chair. Anyway, the second thing I should say about that is don't get a cab unless you really have to, unless it's like, you land at 3 in the morning or something, because the taxis are expensive. And they're pretty time consuming in terms of getting to London because, as I said, it's quite far out, it's a long drive. So your best option is to get public transport. Um, on that side, you're not going to find too many buses running to from airports. So you'll find some coaches. So that might be an option. But let's take, I'm not going through all four of them, but let's take Heathrow as a prime example. If you land, you have a few choices. You have the Heathrow Express, which, if you just rock up and buy a ticket, is ridiculously expensive. But if you do want to use the Heathrow Express, then I would recommend buying your tickets in advance. You're going to save a ton of money. Look at that. So advance purchase single, £15. Yeah, it looks like you can only actually buy singles rather than returns. I'm not quite sure why, other than a day return. But so £15 for advance purchase versus 25 quid on the day. So you buy it in advance, £30. You buy it on the day, you're looking at 50 quid. So you're going to save a lot. There are other things I've noticed, some £10 discounted offers as well. So keep an eye on that. But that will save you a pretty penny if you have to go via Heathrow Express. Heathrow Express is super quick, so it's very convenient. So it's worth it if you're in a rush. But a factor that can easily be overlooked is that Heathrow Express runs from Paddington to station to Heathrow. So what happens is if you're not staying in Paddington, you have to get off the Heathrow Express and then get onto the tube system. So even if you got the £15 advance ticket, you're still going to have to pay your tube fare. So the cheaper option of all would be, well, it's probably walk, but that's impractical. The cheapest option is either the Elizabeth line or the Piccadilly line. I'd probably go for the Elizabeth line over the Piccadilly line because it actually cuts straight through central London. So you can go, whether it's you saying central or in the West End or over towards the city at Liverpool Street, for example, or Farringdon. It's a fantastic line. And that once you're in the system, you don't have to get out of the system. So that will cost, I think it was £5.60 from Heathrow to anywhere in central London, Zone 1. So, and as I mentioned, zones, very quickly aside on the way the London system works, it is based on Zones 1, which is central, 2, 3, 4, 5. So the further you go out, the wider the zones. There's no huge amount to say about that, really, other than say if you are staying outside of London, it's going to be quite cheaper or cheaper than central London when it comes to, say, food or drink or accommodation. The offside of that is the transport in might also be more expensive. So you'd maybe sit down and do the maths to see if that's worth it, depending on where you want to stay and how much you want to spend. Okay, that's a nice segue on to transportation more generally in London. First thing to know is you absolutely do not need to rent a car. In fact, you don't want to rent a car. The traffic in London is quite bad. There's also lots of traffic maintenance, and there's also a congestion charge which you have to pay every single day. So if you rent a car and you're in zone one, you're going to have to pay £15 a day on top of all the other costs just to have the privilege of driving around. So waste of time, don't bother with a car. Also, probably even though they're iconic, maybe try and limit the amount on taxis. Taxis are very expensive. They are convenient for certain situations, but if you're going to get taxis to and from different trademarks, different landmarks, it's going to start racking up. So don't bother with that. Now, London does have a fairly effective rail network. However, it's not going to be of much use to the tourists. It's a lot more designed with commuters in mind. So, a bit like a lot of other places, these train lines will run all the way out into different parts of the country, whether it's sort of within that sort of commuter belt or further afield, and then they end at the destination. However, to get from one of those train stations to another train station, you're not going to really want to use the train because it doesn't run. There's a couple that kind of do, but yeah, you come into say Waterloo when you want to get to Liverpool Street, yeah, you're going to have to get the tube. There's not many options for trains. However, trains are useful, which will come to for my fortune saving thing, and it will involve these cards. Now, while trains are quite limited in their usefulness for your London visit, if you're just hanging around the city, if you want to get out and about, visit say different places, even around the country, rail is your best option. Couple of things to know about that is the ticketing system at this present time, and I wish it changed, but it can be really, really complicated, really convoluted. So if you want to save some money, the best option is to book in advance, but also book on a specific train. So you need to plan out in advance. Work out your timings and your schedule. Give yourself plenty of time to say if you're doing a day trip to Bath or Brighton or whatever. But yeah, the system is very hard to negotiate. So just if you are going to use a train, get out and about, then definitely book it in advance and on a specific train, and that should save you quite a chunk because just turning up on the day and handing out the cash is going to be a lot more expensive. One final point on the trains to remember is that they have peak times, off peak and on peak, or just peak. In Monday to Friday, at 6:30 in the morning till 9:30 in the morning, and in the afternoon from 4 up until 7. So if you travel within those windows, you're going to pay more. Some of them are quite higher. So the further you go out, there's going to be like £2, £3 sometimes difference. So try and either get the train if you are going to try and get the train outside of those times as best you can because that will put quite a noticeable dent actually. I commute in and pay as you go, and for me from zone 5 off peak it's £2.10 cheaper. So yeah, it soon racks up if you are tapping and going. The tube also does have peak and off-peak times. I think it's just in the morning, but I might need to check that. It shouldn't make a huge amount of difference if you're in zone one. I think it's about 10p difference. Whereas if you're going from zone one to two, three, four, five, that's when the costs start soaring. Not a huge amount to say on how to save money on the tube. You can tap and go, which is fine, or you can buy a travel card. I think they're now capped, so even if you just keep tapping, it won't cost you any more than a travel card. So that's really good. So you're not going to get scammed out of money in that sense. I will say, and I learned this the hard way, that you have to be aware of that the tube fare is exactly the same anywhere in the zone you go. So if you are tapping and going or using Oyster, it's the same thing. So it's easier just to use pay as you go. Um, don't do it for one stop. So if I just go one stop, it costs the same if I went 10 stops. If you are then looking at getting around London and you don't have a travel card, make sure you're next to it. Because for example, when I first moved to London, I spent like 6 months getting the tube from Moorgate to Liverpool Street and not realising it's probably about a 4 minute walk, if that. Final thing I actually forgot about because I don't have children is child prices. Do not use your bank card. Or give your kid your bank card and use that because you're going to rack up a lot of unnecessary costs. Children under 11 travel for free on the London Transport Network, so that's good. There is a special card between 11 and 15. So if you're older than, if you're 16 above, obviously you just got to pay the adult fare. But yeah, make sure you're not using the pay as you go or the Oyster card or anything like that for your kids who are 11 or younger, because there's no need, because they can travel free. Another popular choice to get around London is the buses. They are obviously pretty extensive in terms of the network. They're very frequent. They can be quite slow and stuck in traffic. However, they are by far the cheapest way, and the second cheapest way to get around London. £1.75 flat rate. Flat rate anywhere you go in the whole of the London bus network, which is super, super cost effective. Another thing that not many people know about is there's also an unlimited travel for an hour. So you can tap on one bus and then you can change as many buses as you can within an hour, and it's all just £1.75. So if you can plan ahead and work out the best bus networks, you can probably get from one side of London to the other for £1.75. So yeah, that's something to consider. I mean, all of these transport options, I'm not saying one or the other. There's obviously a whole selection. It really depends what you want to do. But on balance, I would always rely on the tube over taxis and or buses. And of course, the very final option, which is the cheapest option of all, is to walk. London is a fantastic city for walking. Just you can just, and it's actually a lot accessible as well. People sort of, you got to get the idea that London's a bit of a sprawl, but all that zone one, you can take 2 or 3 hours or whatever. Nice stroll along the South Bank through the city, Buckingham Palace or whatever. So yeah, don't be afraid to walk. Things aren't actually that far, and usually it's a pretty pleasant walk. So yeah, walking, of course, will say they say £1.75 on a bus fare. You just walk. But yeah, that's always a good option. I like walking. We mentioned this next money saving tip earlier in the context of trains, but the booking in advance will save you a fortune. There is some huge markups on everything, whether it's those sort of hop on, hop off sort of type city buses, whether it's going to theatres or to comedy or to anything like that. Book in advance. Don't you might end up paying a few quid in management fees or whatever, but going out to those sort of booths in the West End and buying tickets there, rocking up to all those major tourist attractions, buying stuff on the day, just a bad idea. Do your research, book your tickets online, and you'll find the markups are quite ridiculous. So you'd save a little bit then. A really good way to save money, and a lot of people aren't always aware of this one too, is don't pay for a view if you don't have to. Now, obviously, there's lots of places you can go for a view and pay a pretty penny. The Shard, the London Eye, I think Battersea Power Station's now got a viewing platform. However, there are a few options which are actually free. I think there's the Lookout, which is at 8 Bishopsgate, and there's also the Walkie Talkie. You've got the Sky Garden there. Yeah, you have to book a slot, but the fact is, you can get these fantastic views without the price. So if you want to trim down on some savings, maybe look at those free viewing galleries. London is a fantastic destination for food. The city's got absolutely everything from three Michelin star fine dining to McDonald's and everything in between. The UK actually has historically had a bad reputation for food, which is probably fair enough, but I think we've come a long way. But if you want to save a little bit of money, here's a few interesting ideas, starting with breakfast. Assuming you've got breakfast in the hotel, stock up on that, so that's always a winner. You've also got an abundance of cafes and restaurant chains, which are, pretty competitively priced. Greg's, Pret, those kind of things. So if you need to pick up a sandwich and a bag of crisps, that's always fantastic. Supermarkets as well, if you're really after a bargain, a lot of those, Sainsbury's, Waitrose, even Boots is the chemist, they do meal deals. So you'll get a sandwich, a bag of crisps or a snack, and a soft drink for, I don't know, £3, £4, £5. Yeah, it's probably not the greatest in the world, but if you're on a budget and maybe you're going out for a day trip and don't want to spend a fortune on sit down lunch, those are good options. Keep an eye out for special offers. There are some around, so some of them are quite good. Not quite happy hours aren't really much of a thing, but you do find them in some different restaurants. But you often find very specific lunch menus, brunch menus, bottomless brunch. So you might have plenty of fizz. There's also the pre-theatre menu if you're going to the theatre, sort of don't mind eating early. So that's a good option to save some pennies. You may also find some meal deals and other sort of incentives and discounts on certain nights of the evening. So, Monday nights buy two, get one free, or or 50% off burgers or whatever it is. But have a look around and see what deals there are, because there are deals to be had, and it will trim a little bit off those quite pricey food bills. If you're after a cheaper drink, there's the infamous Weatherspoons, which is a chain that has not the best reputation in the UK. Although, in fairness, the central London ones are pretty fine, pretty nice, pretty pleasant. So, cheap place to drink there. There's also Sam Smith's chain, which I think is Tadcaster or something like that. They're dotted around. The Chandos, I think, is the most famous one. They have pretty cheap drink beer as well. So if you're looking on a budget that isn't just drinking about supermarket booze in your hotel room, those are two options. And also, actually, if you are a beer drinker, there's kind of three tiers of pricing in beer. The most expensive one would be the sort of premium craft beers. This is all very arbitrary, but you'll find the Camden Hells or Peroni and all that sort of stuff, which isn't really that nice. But it's very expensive. You're looking maybe central London, £7.50 a pint. You then got the middle sort of tier, those sort of slightly blander ones, the Budweiser or Carling, Foster's. So they're a lot cheaper. But if you want to save some money, then real ale is going to be cheaper than lager, stout, Guinness, and all that sort of stuff. So if you like ale, it's really nice. That will save you maybe a couple of quid actually a pint. Yeah, there's a steeper markup on that. Now, one of the greatest things about London, and in fairness to Tony Blair, is that all the museums and art galleries are free. Now, that's free entries for the general stuff. You may find there's certain exhibitions where you have to pay more, but that is a super way to save money. You go to most places, entry to a museum is just 20, 25, 30, $40. It costs a lot. So museums and art galleries, fantastic. Another thing that's free in London, there is an abundance of beautiful parks to hang around in, walk around in. You can go to Hyde Park. There's a Speaker's Corner there, which can get a bit feisty, so be warned. There's also Regent's Park, beautiful Regent's Park. I love Regent's Park. Very pretty flowers and bedding and so on. Richmond Park, you can get to Richmond Park, you can see deers. That's lovely. It's almost like almost, I can say, like countryside. So check out Richmond Park. You can go to St James's Park. I love St James's Park because there are pelicans in there, which is something you don't tend to see in London. But yeah, so in addition to the museums and galleries, explore the parks. They're free. Let's wrap this up then. I've been teasing you enough with the big one, which is this little card, this little golden ticket, if you will. It saves you 2 for 1 on so many London attractions. I mean, I've got the list here. It's just the Tower of London. Tower of London's ridiculously expensive, 2 for 1. Transport Museum, Westminster Abbey, Tower Bridge, Adam Tussauds, Sea Life Centre, Shakespeare's Globe. You can get it on bus stores. You can use it for food and drink. So if you go to the website, it's pretty straightforward. You have to, first of all, you have to buy a ticket from London train station. This is why if you get, say, for example, the Gatwick Express or the Stansted Express, buy returns and keep those tickets. So you go online, you choose what you want to do, and print out a voucher, go along with your rail ticket, boom, you get 2 for 1. And obviously that requires a bit of planning, but there's so much stuff you can do that if you just, for example, buy a ticket, a return ticket, go, I know, wherever, Vauxhall to any London's terminal, boom, you don't even have to use the ticket. But if you buy the return ticket as well, it's valid for the entire duration. So you arrive on the Saturday and leave the following Friday. You buy your Gatwick Express ticket, or you get into central London, buy a ticket from London Waterloo to Clapham Junction, and back and forth or whatever. Return on the Friday, boom. So that can be used a load. So yeah, this is amazing, and it will save you hundreds of pounds if you are going to do any of the things we talked about here. Anyway, I hope that was useful, and you will be able to trim a little bit off the excess spend that you can find in London. Until next time, bye bye.